Joining me now, Ohio Representative Joyce Beatty. Congressman Beatty, thank you so much for being with us. We've seen this kind of momentum before, where Congress appears to be on the verge of coming together to pass meaningful reform, but then it just fades away. So do you get a sense after hearing from the White House that this time things could be different?
You never know what to think from this president, but first let me just say my heart and my thoughts go out to all of the families and to friends and communities in Dayton, Ohio, in El Paso, Texas as well. This is a time now that we all need to come together. When you think of what the American citizens want, more than 90% of them want us to make sure we have background checks. When you look at what's happened this time with the polls that were taken, even 50% of some Republicans are saying they would support actions. It's time for us to be intentional, and this has to be urgent. We can't do business as usual. We can't count on this president. But I'm going to say members of Congress and those in the state legislature, we need to come together and put a stop to this. I'm so proud that the Democrats, one of the first things we did when we took back the majority, just in full control about 7 or 8 months ago, H.R. 8, to pass the background check. We picked up some Republicans. It was a bipartisan bill. We need to do more, and it can't stop with background checks.
You say that you need to do more. The president's rhetoric has been front and center in the wake of the shootings in both Dayton and in El Paso. Let's take a listen to what your colleague Denny Heck said to my colleague Francis Rivera just yesterday.
It's inarguable the president is a white supremacist. This is not rhetoric that he is engaging in of a short-term nature and as a matter of political convenience. This has been his behavior over a very long period of time, predating his days as a candidate or as an occupant of the White House.
Congresswoman, do you agree and do you feel the president is responsible in any way for these attacks?
Absolutely. I agree 100% with my colleague and good friend Denny Heck. This goes far beyond him being the not commander-in-chief, but the divider-in-chief. We can go back to housing and what he did. We can look at all of the despairing and discriminatory things he said against women. Going to Puerto Rico and throwing people paper towels. When we think about what he said to my 4 colleagues, telling them to go back home, Elijah Cummings, and the list goes on and on. I think he does this to try to divert us from the other issues that are at hand. But we are very willing to confront this president because he is not a commander-in-chief. Yes, I think he's a white supremacist. Yes, I think he's a racist. And yes, I think he should not be our president of these United States. When we think about the families, he had nerve enough to go to Dayton, Ohio, and then to go to Texas and talk about the crowds and compare his numbers with Beto O'Rourke. When we were thinking about people who had lost their lives to a senseless, gun-violent, domestic terrorism act, that's not someone I'd call a president, and certainly not someone that I will consider my president.
Just a moment ago, you used the word confrontation. You talk about confronting him. Does that confrontation avoid impeachment? Because now you are one of 119 Democrats who support opening an inquiry against the president. What do you think is driving the increase for people who are willing to join you? And how many more of your colleagues do you expect will join your calls for impeachment?
Oh, I remember when I first signed on and there were only 30 Democrats, and now we're up to over 100. I think each day we will gain more members of Congress when we come back after being off and in our districts, because enough is enough. And one of the things, I'd send a message to the president and tell him to grow up, and we're not afraid of him because we're fighting for the people. Those are real lives, children and families that are being destroyed, and he's talking about he may consider background checks. We don't need to have high-powered ammunition. We don't need to have AR-15s and automatic weapons in responsible people's hands, because if you're hunting or if you want it for your own protection, those are not the guns that people need to have.
Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, I want to thank you, and also my condolences to your constituents, those who were near Dayton during that shooting. Thank you for joining us.